This is the story of a people scattered, broken, still standing strong.
Welcome to the Orphans of Silence, a special episode this January 2026. You know, when we talk about conflict, our minds often jump straight to the battles, the dates, the casualties. But history doesn't really begin with war, does it? It starts much earlier, with structure, with how people organize power, authority, land, and even truth within their societies.
That's such a crucial point, John. We often jump to the dramatic climax, but the underlying social and political architecture really sets the stage for everything that follows. It's about the deep currents, not just the surface waves.
Exactly. And for many, especially Igbo children growing up in the diaspora, there's always this gnawing question. Why were we targeted? Why not others? It's a question that deserves an honest, evidence-based answer, not just hushed tones or incomplete narratives.
Indeed, Sylvester. This isn't about propaganda, as the host mentioned. It's about correction. It's about memory, yes, but memory disciplined by verifiable evidence. We need to peel back the layers and understand the systemic factors at play.
Absolutely, Sylvester. So let's start at the beginning, or rather, before the beginning of colonial intrusion. We're going to dive into pre-colonial Igbo society. What was it about this structure that made it so different? For one, it was largely acephalous, meaning without central kingship. Igbos trusted in Chukwu as the supreme deity in different depictions.
Right, and this is quite distinct from many of their neighbors. Instead of a powerful monarch or a strict hierarchy, authority was distributed. You saw it resting in extended families, in village assemblies, councils of elders, age grades, and these very important titled societies. It was a network, not a pyramid.
Yeah, imagine that. Decision-making wasn't handed down from one person, it was participatory. Often argumentative, I'm sure, but ultimately consensus-driven. Everyone had a voice, or at least a pathway to having their voice heard, which is pretty radical even by today's standards.
It functioned as a decentralized civic order, and while it's an overstatement to say Igbos invented democracy in the modern sense, the accurate point is that Igbo political culture consistently resisted autocracy far more than most neighboring systems. That resistance, it became incredibly significant later on.
And that's where we pivot to segment 2.
Of Silence, the Igbo story, Orphans of Silence.
Colonialism and the Igbo problem, as the British saw it. When the British arrived with their indirect rule system, it worked fairly efficiently where existing hierarchies were already in place, among the Emirates in the north, for example, or the monarchies in the west. But among the Igbo, it failed spectacularly.
And it failed precisely because there was no single authority to co-opt. The British couldn't just slot a warrant chief into an existing king's position because there wasn't one. So what was their response? Not admiration for this unique system, but coercion.
Yeah, it must have been incredibly frustrating for them. They imposed these warrant chiefs who had no traditional legitimacy, criminalized traditional assemblies, and just used force when consent couldn't be obtained. It wasn't about understanding, it was about control.
And this tension culminated in very sustained resistance, the Ekumeku resistance being a prime example. This was a prolonged anti-colonial campaign that actually inflicted genuine losses on British forces. Empires, they don't forget or forgive humiliation easily. They remember it, often in their administrative policies, for a long, long time.
That's a chilling thought, Sylvester, that administrative memory of humiliation. It leads us perfectly into segment 3, education, mobility, and post-colonial resentment. By the late colonial period, the Igbo disproportionately embraced Western education, trade, and labor migration. They became highly visible.
And this wasn't some grand conspiracy, was it? It was more about a cultural agility and willingness to adapt to new systems. This led to professional advancement across Nigeria, and at independence, prominent Igbo figures like Nnamdi Azikiwe occupied major offices, including ceremonial president.
So, it was visibility, not a plot. But in fragile states, especially nascent ones still figuring themselves out, that kind of visibility, that kind of success, can unfortunately breed backlash. It's a sad reality, but true.
The resentment wasn't necessarily personal. Not initially. It was structural. You had intense competition for scarce power, significant regional imbalance, and a pervasive fear of dominance within a weak federation. This is where envy enters the equation, not as the root cause, but as a potent accelerant to existing tensions.
Cry out loud, years buried in fear, children seeking for their future. Who will speak for us? No more silence. Orphans of silence.
From 1945 to 1967, anti-Igbo violence formed a continuous pattern before the war. In 1945, Igbo tin mine workers were attacked in Jos, with colonial authorities minimizing ethnic targeting. In 1953, riots in Kano turned ethnic. Igbo residents were singled out, killed, and expelled without serious prosecutions. Between 1954 and 1959, repeated assaults in northern towns targeted Igbo traders and clerks, looted shops, and displaced families, officially dismissed as disturbances. After the coups of 1966, violence escalated. May-July 1966 saw Igbo soldiers and civilians hunted in multiple northern cities. September-October 1966 brought mass killings in Kano and Kaduna, including women and children, and a mass flight eastward. By early 1967, over 1 million Igbo had already been displaced before any declaration of war. As one survivor recalled, they checked names at the roadblock. If your name was Igbo, you did not pass. The war did not create the violence, it inherited it.
They were tolerated and in many places facilitated. This is a crucial distinction. It speaks to a level of organization or at least a severe breakdown of state responsibility. The harrowing accounts of what happened during those months are they're truly unimaginable.
Children were killed, women were mutilated. Trains returned east not with refugees but filled with bodies. Can you imagine the horror, the shock, the profound sense of betrayal? At that moment, the Nigerian state failed its most basic duty, the protection of its own citizens.
And this is a fundamental point often distorted in history. Secession, the declaration of Biafra, followed this violence. It did not precede it. It was a desperate act of self-preservation in the face of absolute state failure and existential threat. That sequence of events is critical to understanding the motivation.
Secession followed violence, not the other way around. That's a powerful truth, Sylvester, and it sets the stage for segment 5, the war and international complicity. The Nigerian Civil War from 1967 to 1970 wasn't just fought by Nigeria. It had significant international backing.
Documented support came from multiple powerful nations. Britain, for instance, provided arms and crucial diplomatic backing. The Soviet Union supplied military hardware, expanding its influence in Africa, and even Egypt was involved, providing pilots and logistical support. It wasn't a contained internal conflict.
And with that international involvement, the war took on an even more brutal character. Hunger became a weapon. Aid corridors were blocked, deliberately, to starve a population into submission. Children died not as accidental collateral damage, but as leverage, a horrifying tactic.
Biafra, while predominantly Igbo, was not exclusively Igbo in its composition. People from other minority groups in the eastern region also sought refuge and fought under its banner. However, it's undeniable that Igbo civilians bore the overwhelming cost of the war, both in terms of lives lost and the destruction of their society.
The overwhelming cost indeed. And when the guns finally fell silent in 1970, what followed wasn't justice, it was silence. That brings us to segment 6. What came after silence, not peace?
The Igbo story, orphans of silence, children of hunger, mothers of tears. Oh, orphans of silence, names lost in shallow graves, years buried in fear, because we left our story for our enemies to tell.
There was no tribunal, no reckoning, no official memorials acknowledging the immense suffering.
It was as if the war, and the reasons behind it, were simply meant to be swept under the rug. A collective amnesia was enforced, and the human cost of that was immeasurable, particularly for the most vulnerable.
Thousands of them were driven across borders to Gabon, to Côte d'Ivoire, and to other distant lands not by choice but by terror. Many never returned. They died quietly in unfamiliar soil, weakened by hunger, disease, and abandonment, far from the language that named them and the homes that should have claimed them. Their suffering did not end with death. Their stories were left unrecorded, and their names were deliberately erased from the country into which they were born, a country they did not choose, a fate sealed by the accident of birth. To be Igbo at that moment was not a crime, yet it was punished as one. Except in Gabon, where physical burial sites still exist as silent witnesses, these children vanished from official memory. This is where the Orphans of Silence truly begins, not with the war itself, but with the deeper cruelty that followed, when the world looked away and allowed innocence to be buried twice, first in the ground and then in forgetting.
It's a testament to the power of denial, isn't it? To refuse to acknowledge a massive humanitarian catastrophe and the systemic violence that led to it. This lack of official acknowledgement and historical reckoning has profound lasting impacts on the survivors and subsequent generations.
And that's why memory still matters. It's not about reliving trauma for trauma's sake, it's about understanding. Which brings us to our final segment, why memory still matters. This podcast and the book, The Orphans of Silence, exist precisely because erasure is not accidental. It's often a deliberate policy, a policy by omission.
If a people forget why they were targeted, if they don't understand the historical and structural precedents that led to their persecution, they inherit that vulnerability all over again. It's a dangerous cycle of forgetting that we need to actively break.
Yeah, memory isn't just about the past. It's about safeguarding the future. For the children of the diaspora, understanding this history is crucial to their identity, their sense of self, and their ability to navigate the world. It's about healing wounds that have festered because they were never acknowledged.
It's about giving voice to those who were silenced, giving names to the unnamed. History, when it's accurate and acknowledged, becomes a powerful tool against the resurgence of similar patterns of oppression. We can't afford to be ignorant of these lessons.
And that's the core of our mission with the Orphans of Silence. It gives voice to the children who survived the war Nigeria never truly acknowledged. The book is available now, and you can find it through Amazon, Ingram Spark, Draft to Digital, and all major online and offline bookstores worldwide. The audio edition is also available on Apple Books and Apple's global audio distribution network.
It's not nostalgia, it's a record, a meticulously researched account designed to shed light on a dark chapter that deserves to be understood, not erased. This truth needs to be out there.
And for anyone who's ever wondered, why us, this book offers answers. It's a powerful step towards acknowledging the past and, hopefully, preventing future generations from asking that same painful question.
Because as John said earlier, records outlive regimes. They outlive policies of silence. They stand as enduring testaments to what happened, ensuring that the lessons, however difficult, are never truly lost.
Thank you for joining us on this very special episode of The Orphans of Silence. We hope this discussion has shed some light and encouraged you to delve deeper into this critical history. Until next time, remember that knowing the past is the first step towards building a just future.
This is the story of a people scattered, broken, still standing strong. A war the world moved past, but it never left our hearts. Orphans of silence, the evil story. Orphans of silence, children died of hunger, mothers with tears. Oh, orphans tell. Cry out loud, years buried in fear, children seeking for their future. Who will speak for us? No more silence. Orphans of silence. The Igbo story. Orphans of silence. Children died of hunger. Mothers with tears. Oh, orphans of silence. Names lost in shallow graves. Years buried in fear. Because we left our story for our enemies to tell. We carry the ones who were taken in the cracks of our voices. Their names a war that never ends, but the blood still remembers its way. Orphans of silence. The Igbo story. Orphans of silence. Children of hunger. Mothers of tears. Oh, orphans of silence. Names lost in shallow graves. Years buried in fear. Because we left our story for